Okay, fine. So, good morning. We'll start with the last unit of your applied thermodynamics course. The unit 5 is more of like refrigeration and air conditioning. This is the two questions. We'll be having two questions, one from refrigeration and other from the air conditioning or psychrometry. Uh, so we'll start with the refrigeration. So in the refrigeration topic, what we'll be looking at, we'll be looking at the air refrigeration, specifically with respect to the reversed Breton cycle. You maybe in the you might have studied earlier the Breton cycle, which is extensively used in gas turbines, which is also called as a constant pressure cycle. So here we'll be looking at how we can use this reversed Breton cycle for air refrigeration, and we will be looking at the other two types of refrigeration. One being the vapor compression refrigeration system, and other one being the vapor absorption. And both these refrigeration systems will be using the refrigerants, what is called as which will be the main working medium, which will be absorbing the heat to keep that particular space at the temperature much lesser than your atmospheric temperature. Okay. And before actually jumping into your refrigeration, all those things and all, let us know the definition of it actually. A simple definition. Okay. Simple definition of refrigeration. What is refrigeration? Refrigeration. So it is a process of keeping a particular system temperature much below its surrounding temperature for a longer duration. Okay, and to achieve this actually we're going to use a device, or we have come up with a working device which is called as a refrigerator. Okay, that's a very simple definition. So it is a process of keeping a system temperature system temperature much below its surrounding temperature. Okay, surroundings for a longer duration. It's not only for few minutes or something. I have to keep it for a longer duration. I have to keep it for longer duration, that particular system. Okay, now the device that is used to get this refrigeration effect, or to achieve the refrigeration, achieve the refrigeration process is called as refrigerator. So this is a very simple definition of your refrigeration. Okay. So when we speak of refrigeration, there is one very specific definition. Okay. There is one specific definition which is used commonly referred. Maybe if you go and look at the specification of an air conditioning device or refrigeration device, all those things, there is something called as TR. You might have seen the TR is there. Okay, this is the capacity existing. So what is the TR? It is called as ton of refrigeration. Okay, ton of ton of refrigeration. This is the quantity which we try to represent your refrigeration. So TR. So what is meant by ton of refrigeration? See, there are two definitions. So one definition is as per your ashtray. Okay, what is it actually? See, one of the definition which was earlier, which we used to do maybe around 1960s or 70s. What they used to do actually, they used to tell that it is the amount of heat removed from 1 ton. What is 1 ton? 1 ton means actually it is 1000 kgs of water at 0 degree Celsius. Okay, to ice at 0 degrees Celsius in a period of 24 hours. Okay, this was the definition which was defined earlier. Okay, that is 1 ton of refrigeration means it is the amount of heat removed from 1 ton, that is 1000 kgs of water at 0 degrees Celsius to ice at 0 degrees Celsius in a period of 24 hours. How much of heat you are going to remove? That to convert 1000 or 1000 kgs or 1 ton of water to ice at the same temperature. That was called as ton of refrigeration. But ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Air Conditioning and Refrigeration for Engineers, ASHRAE, they redefined it actually. Okay, they redefined it actually, and they told that it is 1 ton means it is not actually 1000 kgs, it should be 906 kgs. So they did a lot of calculations, all those things and all. They defined it is the same, similar to what it was accepted by earlier with most of the engineers or the refrigeration engineers. So it is the amount of heat removed from, they call this 906 kgs as short ton. Okay, amount of heat removed from 1 short ton, SHORT, short ton, TONNE, which is of 906 kgs of water at 0 degrees Celsius to ice at 0 degrees Celsius in a period of 24 hours. So this was definition which was redefined, and even today most of the refrigeration engineers or HVAC engineers, they try to use these definitions. So this is the present definition, and there is a particular calculations mathematical error. I will try to show that what it is. Okay, first let us write what the definition which was defined earlier, that is the amount of heat removed, amount of heat removed from 1 ton, that is what we all follow, 1000 kgs. Okay, 1000 kgs of water at 0 degrees Celsius to ice at 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, in a period of 24 hours. In a period of 24 hours. So let's try to write it mathematically. That is 1 ton of refrigeration is equal to, what is the mass? It is 1000 kgs. See, you know that there is something called, this is mainly because of there is a conversion of water to ice. Okay, there is a conversion of water to, there is a phase change. If you go back and look into the pure substance, I told that conversion of water to vapor, it is called as latent heat of vaporization. Okay, similarly we have latent heat of solidification, that is water to solid. Okay, the latent heat of, that is latent heat of ice, latent heat of ice, which is internationally expected, that is accepted values actually 335 kilojoules per kg. I think some of the books they go with 334 point some change actually, but we can round it up to 335 kgs. So what is the heat removed? 1000 kgs into 335. Okay, now what is the time actually? So the time is 24 hours. Okay, into how many seconds actually? It is 60 into 60. Okay, 60 into 60, so that I'll be getting a value of 3.87 kilojoules per second or kilowatts. This was the definition which was followed by everyone earlier until unless ASHRAE changed it. Okay, now which is no more accepted, this is not the value which is used now. Now what we use actually, it is as per ASHRAE. Okay, American Society of Heating and Refrigeration. Okay, heating and refrigeration for engineers. Okay, now according to this, what is the definition? Okay, it is the amount of heat removed from 1 short ton Okay, they change this. What is this one short ton, which is 906 kgs of water at 0 degrees Celsius to ice at 0 degrees Celsius in a period of 24 hours. You refer to any textbook, this is the definition. Now let us try to write it actually. So what is the mathematically it is 9 TR is equal to 906. Okay, 906 into 335, that is the latent heat, divided by 24 into 60 into 60. If I do that, I am getting around 3.5 kilojoules per second or kilowatts. Okay, or if I only divide it by only 60, I will be getting around 210 kilojoules per minute. See, most of when you are trying to solve some numericals, these values they try to give. They try to give these values in most of the numerical problems, and we take these values and we'll try to use it. That clear? So this is how your simple definition of a refrigeration and what you mean by tons of. This is a unit. This is how you are going to represent it in your kilowatts. So 1 ton of refrigeration means actually as per ASHRAE and what it was earlier. Now let me see. This is no more used actually. This definition is no more used. So what we are using? We are trying to use only the definition as per ASHRAE. Is that clear? Now let us move to air refrigeration. So the first topic is actually it is the air refrigeration. Air refrigeration. Why it is called as air refrigeration? Okay, the working fluid is actually instead of refrigerant, the working fluid is air. That's why it is called as the working air is used to refrigerate. That means refrigeration purpose. That is to bring down the temperature of any system or any space much below than your surroundings. If I use air as a working substance, it is called as air refrigeration. Okay. Now in this actually we have first thing is actually two cycles will run on air refrigeration. One is Carnot cycle, a reversed Carnot cycle, which is very ideal one. Anyhow, see Carnot cycle already you have studied in your basic thermodynamics. There also you have studied the reverse Carnot cycle. Also you might have studied in your basic thermodynamics course when you are dealing with the two laws of second law of thermodynamics. One on the engine and other one on the Clausius statement. So there the Carnot cycle is defined. Just go back and refresh yourself. So reversed Breton cycle was not discussed. That's why we have in applied thermodynamics. So the first thing is the second air refrigeration cycle. What we use is other than Carnot is actually it is the reversed Breton cycle. Reversed Breton cycle. What it is actually? We know that Breton cycle is a constant pressure cycle. So let me write the PV diagram and TS diagram for it. Okay, this is my PV diagram, pressure, volume, and I can have a corresponding TS diagram also. I can have the TS diagram also. Let's try to draw both PV and TS diagram. At the same time, we do have all the block diagram. So let's write the block diagram also. See, any kind of device you take actually, any kind of device you take, there is an heat addition, there is a heat rejection, there is a compression, and there is an expansion. So these four processes are very common. These four processes are common in most of your cycles or most of the devices which are working on thermodynamic principles. So if that is the case, what we have, let's try to put that block diagram of it actually. So I have a block diagram, something like this. So 4 blocks, let me put. Okay. Let me use this 4 block diagram. Okay, these are the 4 block diagrams, and there's all these block diagrams are All these block diagrams are connected. Now, this block diagram, one diagram should be a cooling one, that is a condenser. Okay, so I should have a condenser. One block should be a condenser, and I should remove the heat. See, this is where I am absorbing the heat. Okay, after the absorbing, I need to compress it. Okay, after that I need to reject it. Then I have to expand it to a lower pressure. So all the devices, these are at high pressure, and the devices on the bottom are at low pressure. Now let's try to connect it. What will happen? See, in the evaporator, I am going to absorb the heat. See, as your as your maybe air working fluid, as your working fluid flows through, as your working fluid flows through your maybe evaporator, it is going to absorb the heat. See, it is going to absorb the heat. It's going to absorb the heat like this. Okay, as it flows, it is going to, so it enters at this thing. Okay, it is going to absorb the heat. Then it will go to compressor. Okay, it will go to compressor to compress it to higher pressure and temperature, because the condenser, see, if I want to reject the heat to atmosphere, it should be compressed. So it should be at higher pressure and temperature. I should do that. So you might have looking at what is available at your home, a vapor compressor refrigeration system. So we do have a compressor. In the compressor, what the refrigerant will be compressed. But here in this particular thing, I'm going to compress the air. And once it is compressed, it will go to your condenser. Okay, it will go to your condenser at higher pressure and temperature. So once heat rejection takes place, it will be at lower temperature, and it has to, in the expander, it will be at lower pressure. So now if I try to do it, what will happen? See, here Q absorption, heat absorption takes place. Okay, heat absorption takes place. So let's call it as maybe P low and T, maybe a particular temperature T. It's going to absorb it. This is also a low pressure. Now what will happen here? See, this is what the T evaporator. Let me call it as T evaporator. Now when it comes out, this will be at high temperature, and this will be at very high temperature and high pressure. Then here what will happen? This will be at T high pressure, but it will be at T low temperature. So I am going to heat. So here heat rejection. Here heat absorption. The heat is absorbed in your evaporator. That means I will have a compartment. You might have seen that you have a refrigeration compartment very similar to that. When I use air, actually, you have a compartment from which I need to remove the heat. So when I remove the heat, what will happen? Its temperature will rise. So this will be at T low. Let me call it as T low. So in the evaporator, it's going to absorb the heat, and its temperature rises even though pressure is low. Then what will happen? It will go to compressor. So the temperature slide, there is an increase. After compression, there is a slightly increase in temperature other than what comes out of the evaporator. Say, for example, the air is entering at some maybe 2 degrees into the evaporator. It may come at 15 degrees from the evaporator, and it may come at 40 degrees from the compressor exit temperature. So you have to increase its pressure and temperature in the compressor. Then it will go to condenser, and heat rejection takes place. Okay. So now air or gas is used as a working substance. This process will work. A similar process will work for vapor compression, and vapor absorption is little bit different actually. Where you have the heat addition is mainly because of some kind of heat addition. It may be we are going to burn some fuel or other factors there. We are going to heat it actually. Heat addition, it's a different process there. Now let's try to put it on the PV diagram. Now If I try to put it in a PV diagram, it is something like this. So you have the heat absorption. Okay, heat absorption is taking place. See, heat absorption. This is how it is. Heat absorption will take place. Then, see, you have heat absorption. See, your process, what is to be actually, it is to go like this. Let me write the first the cycle, then I will try to explain. Two are constant pressure processes and they are connected like this. Okay, they are connected like this. Okay. Now, see, process, this is the process one. So this is the heat absorption. This is the heat absorption. Okay, this is, let me call it as 1. So this is the 1. Now I am going to compress it. Okay, this is what the compression process. Okay, it is compressed to 0.2. This is the 0.2. Then I'm going to reject the heat. This is your heat rejection in the condenser, and I'm going to reach a point. So these are all happening at the same constant pressure. Okay, that is, this is the point 3. Then I will have an expander. Okay, this is your expansion process, and I'm going to reach the point 4. See what we have here actually, I'm going to absorb the heat. So 4 to 1 is heat absorption, 1 to 2 is compression, 2 to 3 is heat rejection, and 3 to 4 is expansion. So you have two heat addition and heat rejection process. One is heat absorption and heat rejection process, and one is compression, and other is expansion. If you go back and see your Breton cycle, see it was everything was reversed. Say whenever you have a compression process, there it had the expansion process, and the arrow, maybe arrow, this thing was the 4 to 1 was your compression, 3 to 2 was your heat, maybe absorption, and 2 to 3 was your 2 to 1 was expansion, and 1 to 4 was your heat rejection. So everything is reversed. What your regular Breton cycle, what you have studied, in this particular thing, everything is reversed. That's why it is called as a reversed Breton cycle. So now if I try to look at your constant temperature or your TS diagram, it will be something like this. Okay, it will be something like this. Okay, now 1 to 2. Okay, 4 to 1, 1 to 2, all those things. Let me try it. So I have a constant pressure constant isentropic compression. It is here. It is 1 to 2. Then I'm going to have the, okay, this is what you have your cooling. Okay, then you have your expansion, and then you have your heat addition. Okay, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 1. Same thing. So this is your compression. This is your maybe cooling, or what happens in your condenser. This is your expansion. This is your heat addition or heating. This is how your reversed Breton cycle will work. I have explained you using a block diagram and using a PV diagram and TS diagram. This is what you are supposed to do it. Now, let us try to, everything is reversed. Everything is reversed what we studied in your Breton cycle. Now, let us try to write the mathematical expressions. See, what you had is actually, you had what is called as a ref efficiency. In the Breton cycle, you had what is called as efficiency. But in case of your maybe refrigeration, we have something called as coefficient of performance. Okay, we have something called as, what is coefficient of performance? What is this coefficient of performance? Let's write that. In your refrigeration, we have what is called as coefficient of, it is already studied in your thermodynamics course. Okay, basic thermodynamics course. But still I am trying to define it. COP, or coefficient of performance. What it is actually? It is the ratio of, okay, it is the ratio of heat absorbed heat absorbed to work done. Okay, higher this number, better the performance of that particular refrigerator, whatever it is. Why it is? I am able to remove more amount of heat by doing less amount of work. That's the meaning of it. So coefficient of performance, it is the ratio of heat absorbed to work done. Now let us try to write the mathematical equation for your reverse Brayton cycle. Now, if you look at it, actually, I do have a compressor and I do have an expander. So the difference between the work done by the compressor and the expander will give the net amount of work. That is, if I take WC is the work done by the compressor and WE as the work done by the expander. So when we try to use this Brayton cycle or whatever it may be, so heat is always represented in terms of enthalpy. So work done by the compressor is actually, it is the difference between your H2 minus H1. So H2 is the higher enthalpy, H1 is the lower enthalpy. So H2 minus H1 is the work of compression and H3 minus H4 is the work of expansion. Then what is the heat absorbed? Heat absorbed is actually what is the amount of heat added between 4 to 1, that is H1 minus H4, that's all. Now if you try to substitute, get this expression, substitute in your COP, you'll be getting it. Then what is H actually? H is a function of temperature, or I can write H is equal to Cp into T, which we already studied in your basic thermodynamics. I'm going to use that and write the COP for the Brayton cycle in terms of enthalpies first, then I will try to write it in terms of temperatures. Is that clear? Now let's write it. So net work done or work done by the compression. Let's write it. Work done during compression. Okay, that is your WC. So WC is equal to, as I told, it is H2 minus H1. Let me call this as equation number 1. So work done during expansion. Work done during expansion. This is negative. Okay. So the work done during compression is negative. That means here we are trying to represent in terms of compression and expansion, whatever it may be. So this is WE expansion. This is H3 minus H4. Okay. Let me call this as equation number 2. Net work done. So net work done on the device, that is your cycle. Net work done during the cycle. I am calling it as net work done during the cycle. This is negative, but still I am showing it as positive. What it is actually? That is W is equal to WC minus WE. That's equal to H2 minus H1 minus H3 minus H4. Okay, this is your net work done. I am calling this as equation number 3. Okay. Now, what is your COP? Already we have defined. COP is defined as heat absorbed. So let me write the heat absorbed first, then we'll go to, okay, heat absorbed. Heat absorbed. That is your QABS. How much is it actually? This is H1 minus H4. So let me call that as equation number 4. Now we will write the expression for the COP. So what is your COP? COP is nothing but heat absorbed by work done, that is W. That is H1 minus H4 divided by H2 minus H1 minus H3 minus H4. So this is your expression for COP in terms of enthalpy. In terms of enthalpy, this expression. But we know that H is a function of temperature and H is equal to Cp into T. This we have studied in your thermodynamics course. That is, H is a enthalpy is a function of enthalpy as well as your internal energy. Both are functions of temperature. That is, H is a function of temperature. So we'll write it a constant will be Cp. H is equal to Cp into T, and internal energy is a function of temperature. So it with respect to constant volume, we'll write it as U is equal to Cv into T. Now let's try to substitute for H in terms of temperatures. So what will happen? Therefore, your COP is equal to, already we have defined. So H is nothing but Cp into T1 minus Cp into T4 divided by Cp into T2 minus Cp into T1 minus Cp into T3 into Cp into T4. So Cp is common. I can take Cp outside. So this will be Cp into T1 minus T4 whole thing divided by Cp into Cp into T2 minus T1 minus T3 minus T4. So Cp simply cancel out. I am going to end up with expression for COP is equal to T1 minus T4 minus T4 divided by T2 minus T1 minus T3 minus T4. So I am calling that as equation number 6. So equation 5 is the expression for COP in terms of enthalpies, and equation 6 is the expression for COP for air refrigeration in terms of temperatures. So just we are trying to use the maybe expressions for your whatever you have studied in your thermodynamics course. We are trying to apply this. So this is the simple derivation for obtain. Say if they ask you explain the air refrigeration or a reverse Breton cycle and obtain the expression for COP, means you have to do this. Is that clear? Any clarifications? Any doubts? You can just unmute and speak. Okay. If it is clear, I think we'll go to the next topic. See, we have to, as I told, that air refrigeration, anyhow, air is very not that commonly used. Air is not one of the best refrigerant. Okay, air is not a best refrigerant. But what has been found actually, as per ASHRAE and all, actually, we have found a substance. We have found a substance which can absorb the heat from your evaporator or your cooling space at a low pressure and temperature. See, here I can't go to a lower temperature and pressure, lower pressure and temperature. The problem with that actually, so here is a compressible fluid. Here is a compressible fluid, and what maybe some of the properties, if you look at it, actually air has some deficiencies in that. So to mitigate for this, so people have come up with what is called as a kind of a material or a medium, what is called as a refrigerant. And this refrigerant can go, so well, to absorb the heat, actually it can go to a lower pressure and temperature and absorb the heat, even working at the ambient conditions. Okay, and it can transfer, it can absorb the heat, okay, to absorb the heat, and at the same time it can reject the heat at the ambient conditions to the atmosphere. So there are a lot of advantages is there other than your air. So that's why we have gone for this refrigerant. So I will be discussing about this refrigerant regarding CFCs and HCFCs, all those things in the coming classes. But right now, let's try to define what is a refrigerant. Okay, what is a refrigerant and what are the qualities it should have, or we call it as a properties of the refrigerant. Okay. What is a refrigerant? So a refrigerant is a substance. Okay, refrigerant is a medium or a substance. Okay, what I have defined, it is a substance or a medium. It is a substance or medium which can absorb heat from the evaporated space or evaporator, from the evaporated space or evaporator. Okay, it can absorb at low pressure and temperature. At low pressure and low temperature. That is low pressure and temperature. It has to absorb and reject. It has to absorb the heat from the low pressure and temperature at the same time. Okay, at the same time it has to reject. At the same time it has to transfer or reject. At the same time it has to transfer the heat. Transfer the heat to ambient at high pressure and temperatures. High pressure and temperature. Now let us try to write what are the devices which will be, see, low pressure and temperature. Low pressure and temperature. What are the devices which will be working? So here I do have the evaporator and expander. Okay, expander will be, see, it is the one which will be expanding your pressure, medium pressure to lower pressure. Now high pressure and temperature. So what are the devices which are, what are the, maybe a block diagram, if you look at the block diagram. So I do have the condenser and your compressor. So if you closely look at any refrigeration system, we have this 4 devices: an evaporator, a compressor, a condenser, and expander. These 4 devices are very, very common in all your refrigeration systems, any kind of refrigeration systems. Now, if I try to replace the compressor with something else, some kind of heat addition device or some other device, it becomes a vapor absorption system. We will have an evaporator, we have an expander kind of a device, we have a condenser, but a compressor device is replaced by something else, it becomes, then we have what is called as vapor absorption system. So that we will going to discuss in the coming days. Now, I told that this is a simple definition of a refrigerant. Now, what are the properties it should have? Okay. Now, let's look at the properties of refrigerant. Properties of refrigerant. So I'm going to give some around 8 to 10 properties. Then you can refer to any standard textbooks. Okay. The first property, it should have low boiling point and low freezing point. Okay. It should have low boiling point and freezing point. That is low freezing point. What is it? What is the boiling point? See, boiling point is nothing but it is the point at which, is the temperature at which your medium will change its phase. See, at atmospheric pressure, we know that boiling point of water is around 100 degrees Celsius. If I try to bring down the pressure, what will happen? The boiling point, a boiling temperature also will go down, or saturation temperature, you will go down. You might have observed this in your ASME steam tables or any kind of steam tables. But if you look at for a refrigerant, they will be working at pressures much below your atmospheric. So if I'm able to have a temperature, maybe if I look at the your some of the refrigerants R12 or R22 or maybe R134 and all, they will be having a boiling point or minus 67, or ammonia if we take around minus 87, something like that. So these are the boiling point temperatures. So they will be having a negative temperature. That means the range of temperature under which your this thing will be working will be very, very low. Okay. 1 minute. Yana. Take the call. Speak. So it should have low boiling point and low freezing point. Second one, it must have low specific heat. See, what is the freezing point actually? It should not solidify. So solidify means if I go to a lower temperatures, it should not become something like if it freezes actually, what will happen? It will clog your piping. Which is dangerous. The refrigerant should remain in the liquid form. At the same time, at working at the low boiling point, it should be able to work and remove the heat. So that's why it should have low boiling point and low freezing point. Okay. It must have low specific heat. Okay. It should have low specific heat. Okay. And high latent heat. It should have low specific heat and high latent heat. 1 minute. Yani ಏನಪ್ಪದು ಯಾನಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಕಿವಿ ಕೇಳಿಸಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಹೇಳು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಹಲೋ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್ ಹೌದೌದೌದು ಹೇಳಿ ಫ್ಲಿಪ್ಕಾರ್ಟ್ ಸರ್ ಈಗ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನನಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಮಗಳನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀರಿ ನೀವು ಕೆಳಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ನನ್ನ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಮಗಳನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ OTP ಇದೆ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ OTP ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನೀವು ಡೆಲಿವರಿ ಮಾಡಿ OTP ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ 1 ನಿಮಿಷ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ OTP ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ ಸರ್ OTP ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ 676889 686 sorry, there was some Flipkart delivery was there. Sorry, 2 minutes. Okay, fine. The second point what we should do, it should have low specific heat and high latent specific heat and latent heat. See, you have studied something about the CP. Okay, you have studied something about the CP. What is the CP value? It is the ability of any material to retain the heat for a given temperature change. CP value of water is 4.187. CP of your higher steam is 2.5, something like you might have studied. So what is the capacity of it? It's going. So if the lower the value, the better it will be able to dispose the heat. At the same time, during the phase change, I will be able to absorb, or I will be able to attain, or I will be able to have a more amount of heat actually. So that particular property is required for your refrigerant. Okay. Now, high specific, what is the advantage? See, let me write that actually. So if I have high specific heat, it will decreases. Let me write that. Then only you will be able to. So let me write that. Okay, a high specific heat. A high specific heat will reduce the heat absorbed in the evaporator. Okay, so this is also called as refrigerating effect. The heat absorbed in the evaporator, it's also called as the refrigerating effect. If I go by per kg of refrigerant what is used, your refrigerating effect will get reduced. That's the meaning. Most of the standard textbooks, they tell that a high specific heat will reduce the refrigerating effect. Okay, this is one thing. Now, at the same time, if I have high latent heat, okay, if I have high latent heat, the advantage, if I have a high latent heat, this will enhance, this will make your refrigerant to even work at low temperatures. Okay, a high latent heat at low temperature. Okay, a high latent heat at low temperature. What will be the operating temperature of your refrigerant? Maybe -10, -20, -30 degrees, something like that. Okay, a high latent heat of low temperature at low temperature increases the heat absorbed, increases the heat absorbed in the evaporator. Okay, in the evaporator. What it is actually, the refrigerating effect will increase. Here the refrigerating effect will decrease. Okay, the refrigerating effect, a high specific will decrease. So here the refrigerating effect will increase. The refrigerating effect will increase. So that is the reason why we go for a low specific heat and high latent heat. Is it clear? So I have written that. So then it will be easy for you to understand. See, now if you look at it, what is the pressures under which your evaporator and condenser will work? See, your evaporator will be working at low pressures and your condenser will be working at high pressure. High pressure in the sense maybe around 3 bar or 4 bar, whatever it may be. So when you're using such things, the pressures maintained in both evaporator and condenser, I should be able to have, see, the material cost. The material cost of evaporator and condensers are little different. So I should have a positive, see, I should be able to have something, the system, it should be able to detect the leakage. The evaporator is working at low pressure and condenser is working at high pressure. I should be able to see that the leakage should be avoided. The design should be such that the leakage should be avoided at low cost. The evaporator and condenser, okay, should be, so that means the leakage should be easily detected. So an absorbent, a refrigerant, so a refrigerant should be easily detected on leakage. Okay, either at low pressure and in evaporator or at high pressure in the condenser. Pressure in condenser, I should be able to detect it. So both should I should be able to do it. Then only it should be. Okay. Now the fourth one. See, we have seen that critical pressure and critical temperature. if you put the dome actually for water and all pure substance you have seen, what is that actually critical point and critical temperature and pressure actually? That means at that particular point, I could see that the phase change from liquid to vapor, it is minimal. That is the energy requirement will be minimal at that particular point. So when you have such requirement from the pure substance, even the refrigerant, if they have the same property, it is very good. A very high critical pressure and temperature can bring down the power requirements. So that's one property. Okay, I should able to. It must have high critical pressure and temperature. It must have high critical pressure and temperature to reduce the power requirements or energy requirements. Power or energy requirements. So this is a plus point for it. Okay. Now, at the same time, you might have seen that if the specific volume of any medium, if it is small, the working device size also will reduce, or working device size also will be smaller. A low specific volume of a refrigerant will reduce the size of the compressor. Okay, that means it should have a low specific volume. It should have a low specific volume to reduce the size of the compressor. To reduce the size of the compressor. This is one of the major requirement. See, if the compressor size is bigger for a higher specific volume, then it will consume a good amount of space in your device. Okay. At the same time, see, there is one property which is very, very important in your refrigerant: thermal conductivity. What is it actually? Thermal conductivity means it's the ability of any material to absorb the heat. So higher the value, I will be able to absorb a good amount of heat. Lower the value, I will be able to lower this heat, maybe thermal conductivity, I won't be able to. So if you look at a good example, I'll give you. So you might have seen copper. A copper is called as a good conductor of heat and electricity because it's having high thermal conductivity. If I look at the plastic, if I look at the wood, so these are having low thermal conductivities. So now when you come to the refrigerant should be able to absorb good amount of heat, or it should be able to absorb good large quantities of heat in your evaporator. So high thermal conductivity is preferred. Okay, a refrigerant must have, it should have high thermal conductivity. It should have high thermal conductivity. So what will happen? See, there is one equation actually. So Q is equal to HA into delta T. This is an equation which you are going to study in your heat transfer course. This area actually, this is a surface area. A is the surface area. In the similar fashion, we have for the conduction, we have an equation what is called as Ka into dt by dx, where dt by dx is a thermal gradient. This is your, so maybe we'll call this as 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 surface area, A cross section, ACS as the cross sectional area. Now when it comes to conduction heat transfer, this area ACS, this has to be reduced. Okay, the high thermal conductivity will reduce this area. So when I have this, see, if this is a Q, if I have a Q, if I have a, see, for a same temperature gradient, a higher value of K will reduce your A. Okay, it should have high thermal conductivity to reduce the area of heat transfer. Are you getting? To reduce the area of, that's why I'm writing some of equations which is you people will study in heat transfer course. Will reduce the area of heat transfer. Okay. In where there are two devices where the heat transfer is happening. That is, one is evaporator and your condenser. One is absorbing the heat. Okay. Here it is heat absorbed. Here it is heat rejection. For both the cases, if I have a good high thermal conductivity refrigerant, the size of this evaporator and condenser, the area I'm looking at, area. So area wise, they will become smaller. Okay. Now, one more good thing, one more property it should have. Say, suppose if the refrigerant get leaked, if it catches fire, then it's dangerous. Suppose it explodes, it is dangerous. If it is something like it gives some kind of a pungent smell or spreading some kind of a toxic thing, that is dangerous. And suppose the refrigerant while working, it corrodes inside, that's also dangerous. So a refrigerant should be, we call it as non-inflammable. That it should not catch fire. It should be non-explosive. It should not explode. It should be non-toxic and non-corrosive. All these things it should be have. Let me write that. A refrigerant should have, it should be non-inflammable. It should be non-inflammable, non-explosive, okay, non-toxic, and non-corrosive. Okay, let us look at the last property and we'll wind up. Okay, it should have, see, it should be have high, it should give rise to high COP. Within the temperature range, what we are trying to do, it should give high COP. So maybe other properties are there, you can just add to it. It should give high coefficient of performance in the working temperature range. What it is actually? Working temperature. Whether I am working between minus 10 to 20 or minus 30 to minus 40, or minus 40 to some 20 or 30 degrees. So whatever may be the delta, I should be able to get good coefficient of performance. So if you look at the other properties, so maybe cost wise, it should be